Welcome back, episode 79 of the Ground Up podcast. Quite a few property-specific topics this week, as well as some market stuff.
I've made exactly 5.5% yield year on year on that one room.
What did I say in this? Please don't say anything bad.
Oh, I shouldn't have said that.
As a business owner, it's really nice to just completely turn on a different side of the brain.
I missed the network, everything.
You're currently making a quick buck on a supply and demand requirement.
I tell you what, mate, with your hairstyle, if you walked around with just a bed sheet, maybe from Beirut, people would think you were Christ himself.
This is true. It's true.
Strongly advise any of our listeners to go read Taxtopia and HMOs for asylum seekers.
I just don't know how that's possible.
To the malls, you literally can eat your dinner off the floor. People who work there will never get the chance to see what they're building.
Obviously, this is a hot topic in the UK at the moment. That's obviously making our British citizens suffer as well.
Hey Hudson, how you doing? He's like, all right, lads, ladies. So we've got lifted top off.
PBSA will succeed.
I cannot see PBSA working. My reason for it.
Ground up sound, ooh, yeah. Real estate deals. We lay them down, let's get those deals. Deals, making money, baby.
Welcome back, episode 79 of the Ground Up podcast. If you don't know who we are, we're four property developers based in the UK, and every week we get around the mic and talk about our businesses, talk about the market, talk about problems, investors, raising capital, building sites, hiring staff, firing staff, all kinds of things that should hopefully interest you if you're a business owner, investor, or developer. So please do us a favor before you listen any further and subscribe, because if you subscribe, it helps our channel. And as we grow more, we can obviously do more stuff like events, which we're also doing. If you want to come to some of our events, you can check out the link in the description and see what we've got going on. But anyway, big love. Thanks for tuning in. We've got Stuart Wyeth, Jack Jiggins, and myself, Ryan Beaumont. We also have Dorian Payne. It will be joining us shortly. Before we dive into today's episode, though, we have now launched our promotional video for the live event. So, Stuart, take it away. Why should people come?
We have. So the boys went down to the venue and had a good look around. We put the deposit down and we're really excited. I couldn't make it, unfortunately. I had my daughter's birthday, unfortunately, got in the way. So I couldn't make the day. But the guys went down there and we've signed everything up. So 9th of January, really looking forward to seeing our viewers down there. It's going to be a full fun packed day. We've got loads of things going on. We've got some keynote talks talking about commercial sites, HMOs, how to run your business successfully. We're going to do a live event as well, a live session, a live Ground Up podcast. So get involved, come and do your Q&As, get involved and come for some drinks with us and enjoy watching the video.
So we are hosting the Ground Up live event right here in central London at The Brewery. It's going to be on the 9th of January in 2026. And if you don't know who we are, we're four property developers based in the UK. We run various trading businesses. We're doing about 250 million in developments, 1.3 million pound commercial building into 22 residential units.
One of the biggest challenges really is making sure people are doing what they should be doing.
We've partnered with investors and raised £15 million.
GDV on this, if we put the flat at the back and we rent the shop out, it's about 4.1 million.
My name is Ryan Beaumont and I run Beaumont & Partners. We're delivering about 500 units, a mixture of HMOs, buy-to-lets, commercial to residential conversions up in the northeast of the UK.
My name's Dorian Payne and I'm the Managing Director of Castell Group, and we are a social house building company based in Wales. We're building hundreds of homes across Wales and have a pipeline of over 1,000 with over £250 million all forward sold.
I'm Jack Jiggins, co-founder of the XP Group of Companies, which is a development company based in Oxfordshire, and we've delivered almost £100 million worth of property development. We also run a surveying business, a social housing portfolio, and a HMO business too. I'm the fourth member of the Ground Up podcast, which is also the Ground Up Network and now the Ground Up Live.
What does candid mean? Nonchalant. What's that mean? We're speaking French here. So who's this event for? Well, if you're a property investor, a property developer, or you're looking to get around more property people, or just be around highly motivated people, well, this is the place you need to be.
The whole day is going to be based around networking. So ultimately, that's how the four of us boys have helped each other scale our businesses over the last few years. So we want to get a load of people in a room, active people, developers, investors of all sorts, share ideas, case studies, and hopefully you come away with some useful contacts, have a few bevies, and have a good time.
You can get your tickets on this page, so head over there and get them, or even better, bring people along and get a group discount. We thank you for watching the video. We're super excited to launch the Ground Up event here in London on the 9th of January, and we'll see you there.
Cool. Yeah. So click the link in the description of this video or go over to our Instagram bio and you can go and get your tickets. And yeah, get involved. It's going to be a lot of back and forth with the audience. We're going to pass a mic around the room so everyone can throw topics around and all that kind of stuff. So it'll be a different kind of event to most property events. So big love and see you there. And yeah, quick update. You've been on holiday, Stu. Anything to report or are you just cracking on?
Well, this is day 2 back from holiday, and I've been away for a couple of weeks this month, which is, I never go away really during the summer as much as, you know, with the kids being young and stuff. So yeah, got a family holiday in, which was great. Went to Dubai, went to the Atlantis, just chilled for 10 days. A lot of people are like, God, that's a long time, but it was so nice just to do 1 or 2 activities a day and just let the time pass. And it was great. Yeah, spent a lot of the time in the water park and damaged all my back up. I'm sitting here in fucking agony from day 5 of the holiday. A massive agony, didn't even turn my head then, just absolutely killed on my back where I was throwing the kids around and stuff. And the missus went down the rapids backwards and fell out the rubber ring and she scuffed all her bum up. So yeah, from day 5 we've been in pain. Hudson slipped over and cracked his head because he's learning to walk, which was fun. Jesus. So that was the main mission, to get him to walk by the end of it, which was accomplished. And Amelie was just off to kids club because she's a bit of a socialist. She loves being around other children. Every dinner, every restaurant, she wanted to play with all the kids. So it was great. Yeah, and we just let time pass. Not an awful lot of work was happening. And Charlotte done a bit. She's back in the office now because Meg's away. We've got 2 new recruits that have started. So the world don't stop spinning, even though the sun is shining and it was a lot nicer weather out there than it was here, I think. So yeah, it's good.
Beautiful, mate. Sounds bloody good. Yeah, how are you, Jack? What are you saying? Anything to report this week or cracking on?
Yeah, nothing. No, happy to get tucked into some news items. Yeah, nothing particularly extravagant.
Still got the in-laws there, mate?
Well, they've been to Portugal and now they're back, and then they came. I picked them up late last night from the airport, and they're leaving this morning.
Wow! So how long have they been with you? 3 weeks, 4 weeks?
No, about 2 weeks in total. Yeah, it's funny actually. They were. Do you know when you boys got back from the golf trip, you were like all hyped up and like, oh, it's amazing, this, that, and the other. And then you're like, you asked me like, Jack, why didn't you come to the golf trip? And then I basically said, I didn't get to go to Portugal because the in-laws were supposed to come when you guys were going to Portugal, because they booked a trip to Portugal. So I wasn't in Portugal until they went to Portugal. Anyway, I went down into the living room when they were here, and we had obviously recorded that episode. And my mother-in-law was watching it, and I was like, oh, what did I say in this? What did I say in this? Please don't say anything bad. But no, it was fairly clean.
Squeaky bum time, mate. Naughty. Yeah, I mean, I've got
that is the
not
problem.
much.
That is the problem with this podcast, Roy, actually, is you can chat away and just forget you're being recorded. And then you think, oh, I shouldn't have said that.
Yeah, no, there's definitely got to be slightly careful sometimes.
Yeah, I suppose that's good for our listeners to know that we just chat away and try not to worry about what people think of it and try and just talk mere truth.
Yeah. No, I've
definitely fly on the wall stuff, innit?
Yeah, mate. Yeah, but anyway, that's what we're here for, though, isn't it? To try and be transparent. But I haven't got anything to report massively. Cracking on as usual. Got a lot more interviews today, hiring. But I'm in the studio at the moment doing a cover that I'm going to bang on Instagram. Just trying to get back into music a bit, because when I moved to London, my producer is also like a best mate. Lives in Notting Hill, and I just love going to sesh and just getting around that environment. So and as a business owner, it's really nice to just completely turn on a different side of the brain. Like it's a whole different part of the brain you use for music. And my producer was saying to me, he was like, he said strung, which I don't consider myself highly strung, but I'm really detailed, like especially when it comes to creative stuff. Like when I'm listening to like anything vocally, like I'm like every little nuance and tonality and every part of the voice has to be right, and I like layering it and doing stuff like that. And he was like, how does this translate to business? And I was like, I wouldn't say I'm the most like naturally organized person, but I do like to know details and like understand how something works. So I suppose that creative side is a good tool to train, because it does translate into, you know, systems, operations, or, you know, something on site and things like that. So it is nice to just switch off and do something completely different.
When I learned to fly, I got the same feeling. It's just that you're completely doing something different, but yet the systems, the processes, the disciplines are all there to learn, and it's very relaxing. Yeah, a bit like playing golf when it goes well. When it doesn't go well, fucking pain in the ass.
No, I did a golf lesson yesterday, and that was nice to fix up on some bits, because me, Jack, and Matt might be going out this Sunday. It's meant to be thunderstorming though, so we probably won't this weekend. But I don't know. Somewhere Jack will decide, I suppose, around his neck of the woods.
Yeah, I'll check the weather and check some courses.
Yeah, naughty man. But anyway, right, we got a docket this week, ladies and gents. So thank you for bearing with us. Look, I know some of the recent podcasts, just for our audience's benefit. I know we've done quite a lot of rambling. Now, obviously, we're trying to always, you know, this podcast is great for us four boys just to catch up. So sometimes we will just ramble. That's the nature of it. But there was one podcast particularly after Portugal where I was like, that was a very rambly podcast. We just chatted shit for ages. So we'll try not to do that too often.
Equally, there's no harm in our listeners commenting what topics that they want us to cover. So feel free to chuck stuff at us, and we will speak about them. Whatever it may be, personal, business, you know, mindset, you know, whatever, family.
Moving house. I'm just thinking, actually, this is the last time I'll be doing this podcast with my bookshelf looking pretty rammed and busy. So next week it will all be boxed up. All the boxes turned up yesterday, actually, talking about rambling. I just haven't talked to you boys for like 2 weeks. I feel like I've missed out. The FOMO's insane when you're away. I missed the network, everything. But yeah, so all the boxes turned up. So I've started packing up all these drawers and stuff yesterday and last night till 11 o'clock, and tonight I'll start packing all this up. And I worked out we had 100 boxes delivered, and we got 2 weeks to move. And I said, Shart, so if we do 2 boxes a day in the evening, we'll need like 50 days to get this done. We've got 2 weeks, so we're gonna have to really start ramping up. So we need to offload kids. So if there's any babysitters listening that can help next week, and do get in contact.
Babysitters. Anyone
let me know. Kids away.
Yeah, it sounds tough. I don't know how you do it, all the Dubai trip,
mate. It's so difficult to try and catch up. Jack is insane, but that's me done till skiing in February now, so it's got to move house. Anyway, stop enough rambling.
Docket. So what we're going to do is we're going to run through quite a few property specific topics this week, as well as some market stuff as well, and ultimately just get some 2 cents. I will get the specs out because this is where I struggle. I wanted to not so interested in the article as much as I am the company, because I've not heard of them before. I wonder if you boys have. But essentially, the shadow secretary, the shadow housing secretary of the UK, a guy called Tony. Kevin Hollinrakes, who I've never heard of before. But he basically went to this France property event that was hosted by a company that specializes in HMOs and doing HMOs for asylum seekers, and they're called Living Redefined. And maybe I've heard that name before, but
I've seen this guy on Instagram, I think.
Living Redefined.
Yeah.
What are they? What do you know, mate? Do you guys know anything about them? Obviously, this is a hot topic in the UK at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, he's pumping sponsorship at the moment on IG, talking about social housing. So he's obviously got some form of like training arm. I mean, it's pretty big. I wouldn't have said he's a big company. I think there's about 8 in the business, so he's done quite well to get that publicity cover, if I'm honest.
Well, he paid for his expenses, so I'm guessing it was a free trip to France for the shadow secretary, and he probably paid him something else as well. Speculative. But yeah, I mean, it just in the UK right now, for any of our listeners who aren't in the UK, asylum seeker HMOs are like the poo-poo of the entire industry. They're like a big, because not only is it the perception that you're taking family housing stock away, you're now putting in migrants who, you know, a lot of people don't believe have a right to be here. And that's obviously making our, you know, British citizens suffer as well. So this is like a really hot topic. And then you've got our shadow housing secretary going to one of these events. Just doesn't look great. So yeah, there's not a great deal to add to that other than what your guys' perspective is on that one of our elected is messing around in this really hot space that's clearly like hot political, like lava at the moment, isn't it? To even talk about HMOs and then to talk about asylum seeker HMOs and then to go to an event hosted by a company that specializes in asylum seeker HMOs is just like, it just shows like, what is their view on migration and stuff. They're saying one thing that they're gonna deport, and then in another sense they're then going to France conferences hosted by these kind of companies. I just don't think it's a good idea. I mean, obviously, beyond a good idea, because the stuff we see up here, mate, the locals are peeved if you're doing a HMO and you can't prove that you're putting private people in there. They want to see you support local communities, and they understand that. But if you even show that you're putting asylum seekers in there or social housing, the uproar is insane. It's like straight in the local press and the local newspaper. The people on the streets, people are sticking flyers or graffiti in your house. Like, it's happening so quickly.
I think it's fair enough. I see it as like it's quite a dirty sort of asset class from a property investment perspective, and I don't mean that in a derogatory term at all about the use of the property. It's just you're currently making a quick buck on a supply and demand requirement. But the big problem is the government are paying so much for this housing, and it's taxpayers' money. These people are technically upping and benefiting from that taxpayers' money. I mean, we've seen it with Graham King, who made it into the rich list this year because he's got, he was in holiday parks and things like that. And it's purely a lot of these people, and I'm guessing probably Living Redefine. It's quite a interesting name because they're basically they're just purely focusing on the monetization of this particular strategy at the loss of communities, taxpayers' money, and I can't see it being a really sustainable business model. But we obviously need government change to appreciate that. But
that's a good warning to investors as well, isn't it, Jack? That if because I see a lot of this stuff where investors will come to us and they'll go, well, what about these 5-year housing contract guarantees and stuff? And I'm like, it's a fugazi. If the next parliament could abolish all that funding and then it's gone.
Well, I've got a question. Okay. If you had, let's just say you weren't in the day-to-day like Stuart, and you were more of an armchair investor, and you had, a couple of million quid to get out the door, and you had a borrower who was a private residential developer, and they were offering you 15% on your money in building developments and selling residential homes to the open market or renting to the open market. Or you had this Living Redefine come to you and say, do you want to do these deals? You'll get 30% on your cash. Who would you pick?
In a market where there isn't the political volatility that we have right now, I think you'd just go, well, yeah, I'll take the government backed, because the government backed that their coffers are deep, and I'd rather not gamble on the free market. I can imagine that's a much easier sell for investors. But in this market, I think an investor needs to put their hat on and go, hang on, look at the sentiment. You only need to read a couple articles to know that social housing, asylum seeker housing, and all that kind of stuff is not sustainable because the people don't want it, and eventually it's going to get defunded. So
would you be lending that money to that person? Would you want to be associated with that strategy?
No,
that's the problem.
Yeah, so obviously, so for our listeners, there's obviously a few things that an investor will think about, and its returns is obviously the only reason they're in that original conversation initially is to get return on their capital. So that's one of the that is the principal reason. But some of the more important things are security, and then also product type and the people that they're working with. We've got investors that could probably get more returns in other things, but they just like us and they like what we do. So there's also the sort of moral compass as well. So I do feel it's kind of a bit sort of short-lived, this. I mean, I haven't seen any, whatever it may be, whether it be temporary accommodation or short-term lets or asylum seeker housing, that have leases over 5 years. Therefore, what do you do with that asset after 5 years? It's probably worth less because it's got a bad stigma in the location. anything you do with that particular building from a planning perspective will be deemed upon as difficult. So I feel it's a bit of a smash and grab.
Usually they're valued on yield, sold for cash, which means there's not necessarily a red book that gets involved. A lot of the time it can be foreign expats who are just trying to re-domicile their funds back into the UK, and they don't realise they're in negative equity because they've overpaid, because these providers that build this type of accommodation, they're just selling it on a yield basis, and if those contracts fall foul, usually they're not done to a high spec. So that means the free market's not going to pay anywhere near the same kind of rates. So then you end up with that contract disappearing and you're in negative equity, and you've basically made no money when you actually annualize your returns. And then you're having to refurbish the property to try and get it up to standard to try and compete on the free market rates. And you're just behind the curveball. It just seems like such a stupid strategy, but uninformed investors just wouldn't. Of course, they're not going to know that, and they're getting mugged off. Is my view. Stu, got any views?
I think Jack, you both hit on the head. I mean, the problem is with a lot of these asylum seekers is the community piece. Like, they don't want to involve themselves in the community. So if you're going to set up an area for this to happen, and you're going to have councils that need more money than others, so they're going to set up a bit of an area which will just grow and grow and grow into a bigger community. It would be more and more detached from other British citizens, and I think that the short-term money play is only going to ruin that area. They're going to focus on sort of target areas in the UK. Once they've got a stronghold, they'll start building in that area, which will in turn bring a lot of the other houses down in value. So yeah, you're absolutely right that they won't be worth anything over a 5 to 7 year period. I was just thinking then that we had like 3 or 4 companies come to us on our 18 unit scheme before we started renting them to the private market, and we thought exactly that. The local area, it's not worth our name, our brand, our reputation locally to put 18 asylum seekers, or vulnerable people is how they're classed. Is that vulnerable people where you've got no control over your building, you've got no control of who's in there. It would break my heart to know the love and energy we put into that building to go past and see bed sheets hanging out the window and it just looking like a bit like Beirut, which a lot of these places do deteriorate to not worth the bricks and mortar. And then you got the local area.
Beirut.
Morning, D. Oh, he's turned up. Hello, mate.
Big D.
We need to get you a new clock, mate. But yeah, once the building's done, then it's not worth. It's not, and the leases are 6 years and 11 months because they haven't got to pay some sort of stamp. If they do it for that period of time. But then what you do with the building after that, it will literally have to be, or any profits you've made, you'll be rebuilding it because they won't respect any of it.
There's 6 years, 11 months. They don't have to register the lease with land registry. That's the reason behind that.
Let me add one more little insight as well, just because I see a lot of this type of accommodation, and I know a story of a landlord around here who put asylum seekers in there, and because they just come from a different culture, different expectation. It's not that they're wrong; it's just not assimilated to the general housing expectations of the UK. These guys had a pan fire in the living room. That's how they were cooking, and they showered. They had the cubicle, but they took the head out and they showered on the vinyl floor, and it was all going through the building. And the reason I know this is because our plumber was called out to do loads of the maintenance, and he was telling us all the stories, and he was like, "You wouldn't believe it, mate. Like, you just wouldn't believe like how these people live." And that's not the kind of people you want in your property.
Wow.
We had tenant like that. They were in a first floor apartment, and instead of using the bath that was there, they would fill up the water from a bucket and would kind of wash themselves in the bathroom floor area, not in the bath. So then water would just come pissing through the ceiling, and it caused a massive problem. Among other things they did, which was probably obviously how they live elsewhere, but causes a problem for the type of buildings we have and how dense they obviously are in over here.
Yeah, and one more thing to add to that as well. Because they were doing the pan fire, it was setting off the smoke alarms. So these guys just ripped out all the smoke alarms. Didn't take them off and turn the batteries off, just ripped them out the ceilings. So it's just... Anyway, let's move on to the next topic. But yeah, that was just thought we'd start.
These are real life problems, right?
Yeah.
There's the moral side, the political side. Then there's actually like the care of your building. It's like they are living completely different to what these buildings have been designed to be used for. I mean, a pan fire in a lounge, I can just see it now. I mean, it's just absolute carnage.
They'd open the bifold doors.
Chip fat oil everywhere.
Yeah, mate. Yeah. Yeah, mate.
Beirut. I heard a good phrase that I thought I'd share with you guys today. So obviously, what we're talking about is the sort of border problem that we have of people coming over, and this is how they live. But I heard a phrase the other day which made me chuckle, and it is: if you think the government is out for your best interests, it's like thinking that a stripper likes you.
Yeah. Yep. That's good. That's good.
It's a
Not
good
that
one,
I've
Jack.
ever been to a strip club or
You
know
still
what
give
that's
them
like.
Strippers
still
more fun though.
You'll still give them some 20 quid notes though, Jack, wouldn't you?
But to be fair, I would tip to be in that close proximity to see a Keir Starmer.
Yeah, damn straight you would. Damn straight.
A stripper you're forced to pay as well, by the way, just to perfect that analogy. You know, it's a bit fucking weird.
Yeah, I mean, technically, if you're not paying them, their title is removed. They're then just not a stripper.
An entertainer.
No,
A busker.
their day job is a stripper, but they're...
Yeah, but do they pay their VAT? That Textopia book was great. I've got about 40 pages to go, but there was a stripper in that book, which the strip club wasn't paying VAT on their dancers. So it was just whether the dancers were paying VAT or not, whether they were charging their punters, and their revenue went into.
Taxtopia is a really good book.
It's good, isn't it? It opens up the mind to all the different loopholes and ways that people play the game.
Strongly advise any of our listeners to go read Taxtopia. Eye-opening.
Well, Stuart's changing the sign right into his van now. He'll have Guildford, Surrey, and Delaware.
I think there's a joke in there somewhere. Is he slow for everyone else?
Yeah, Doran, are you you got a fire going or something? Because it looks like your Wi-Fi's from Beirut.
Did you not hear?
I got the Beirut Wi-Fi.
Bed sheets every.
Got a few
mate, there's
megabits
bed
a
sheets
second.
everywhere here. You should see it.
We're moving on. Landlords benefit from rising rental yields across England and Wales. So thought I'd just add, caveat into this one, because there's a lot of negativity out there, but let's be positive. Let's be optimistic. I've changed my view over the last few months. I'm like, not view, but just there was so much negativity that happened for a good year, and there still is, but I'm just like, fuck that. Let's just be positive. And, when it comes to property, there's great yields at the moment, but if you're a landlord, if you're owning assets, it is a very positive play, and it's going to continue to be that way as they demonetize the pound. And just to read a couple bits, Northeast, big up Northeast, leads with a 9% rental yield, followed by the Northwest, Wales and Yorkshire and Humberside close behind. Rental values have increased significantly in regions like the West Midlands and Northeast, with overall average yields up 7.5%. And from 7.2% a year ago. Landlords are professionalizing. Now, this is great for us guys, because ultimately all of us provide a service to investors where they're funding projects, and we're building a professional framework, so they can either own or flip these assets long term, because there's now just quite a few loopholes you got to make sure you're following, so you don't get hit with mad tax penalties doing things in your personal name, and all kinds of stuff like that. So landlords are professionalizing with a shift towards limited company borrowing and larger portfolio ownership, despite challenges such as affordability and upcoming regulations. Another reason why I think service providers like us are going to be even more useful to investors, because people want to own assets, right? They want to own property. Investors know that property is safe as houses. They know it's the place to put your money. And because it's becoming more tricky, I think that only bodes well for those of us who've built these type of development service companies, where we're offering the service to investors, because they know, do you know what? I'll actually take a lesser yield because of the risk of doing things myself, and allow a margin for a service provider, because I just want to do it professionally, and I know I want to own property. I don't know what your guys' view is on that, but I think this plays well into development companies like all of us, as the market becomes trickier, more regulated, and more difficult for the layman to be able to invest and go down their own path. What do you think of that sort of sentiment? Stu, go on.
Well, I was packing these drawers up, and I found one of the ASTs from my first professional HMO, and I had to stop me in my tracks. So I pulled out the calculator, and I worked out that I've made exactly 5.5% yield year on year on that one room. And I was thinking it's great, because they're all coming up for 5-year renewals now from 2026 onwards. So I'm thinking, so I started playing with a few of the yield calculators, and knowing the condition, I was over there stripping a room. Someone's just moved into room H on another HMO, so I took the 2 bedside tables out, and I look at the quality, and I went to the bathroom. I'm like, the tiles look immaculate, everything looks brand new. Yeah, it's got a bit more of a smell now. Someone's been living in a room, but it's it's not an unpleasant smell. It feels a bit more lived in.
What does it smell like?
I don't know, a bit like Mayo
Beirut.
Square.
If zero is practical completion and 100% is Beirut, what percentage are we at?
It was 30%. 30% of a smell. It wasn't as clean for me, but I mean, you've got six bodies living in these houses, so it was very pleasant though. And I couldn't believe it. I was like, I've not touched this place in a long time. Not really been here. I just had to go and move 2 bedside tables out.
We've had one of our HMOs for 8 years now, and I go in there and I haven't actually been in a little while, but last time I went in the kitchen, I was like, this literally looks like it went in yesterday.
I know it does, doesn't it? They look brand new. If you're doing well and they're designed well, and you've got
the fortnightly cleaners as well, and it's immaculate.
Yeah, it's the cleaners that keep it that way, though, isn't it? Because they keep an eye on it, and
No, but it's not. It's the wear and tear of the doors. The fridge bits aren't broken. The handles aren't hanging off. It looks like it was put in yesterday. Like Jack said, exactly that. I walked in, I was like, this is amazing, because I'm going to go and get the decorators in. Well, I was thinking this literally yesterday when I took these bedside tables out. I'm going to get the decorators to go in there and spend 3 days just touching up all the walls and taking off any marks off the stairwell 2 or 3 days before the valuation next. And I'm going to probably pull another 75, 80 grand out of these buildings, because I'm quite comfortable in the yield. The income is great. I can't see any issues for the next 5 to 10 years. So I'm not really going to have to worry about the demand. The demand's there. So it's like I'm going to be putting in free money off the back of holding something that I've done five years ago. That really is the long-term value of buying and holding this stuff.
I always talk about this with Ben. Like, even though HMOs are quite boring, bitty, and probably shouldn't give you the same returns on a transactional basis as a development, you don't have to go and find it. You don't have to go and deliver it. You don't have to take all that risk. It's just forever flourishing, to the point where Stuart says you need to do a light touch up in decorating, or a heavy touch up, or a bit of redesign. And I love them. I think their compounding value in a portfolio is so powerful.
It is when you believe in the debasement of currency, and the fact is that I'm trying to get as much debt as I can, because what we get told at school and institutionally is, don't get yourself in debt. Don't play this game where you're going to overexpose yourself. But then all the multimillionaires and billionaires are exposed so heavily in debt. And I know I was around the 2008 crisis. The only people that lost a load of money were the ones that either got called on their debt because they were too overexposed, or had shit assets, or had to crystallize losses. So if you can just, and I remember having my first, which was the house I bought literally right at the peak of the 2008 crisis. And then someone said to me, look, you only lose money if you sell it. So I just rented it out, moved back to Farnborough and set up the business. And and now it's gone on, and now I've pulled out 150 grand out of that property and bought another flat with it. So as long as you don't waste the money you're pulling out and you're buying more assets and more property, you create this bedrock that you can just build on top of, and life then gets a lot easier. It does take 10 years of graft, and you have to go about for 10 years. Unfortunately, this podcast being recorded where I'm starting to enjoy a little bit of the money now and go away and do all of these. And Jack thinks that I don't actually work for a living. But I said I put a page up to say, well, I don't really work from an office anymore, but that's what you create. You create this freedom to be able to work anywhere.
Yeah.
And you just got customers and people you need to deal with.
Inspirational, mate. That's what you are. Inspirational.
You're our wise father, Stu. You're our wise daddy.
A wise father.
Well, yeah. I tell you what, mate, with your hairstyle, if you walked around with just a bed sheet, maybe from Beirut, people would think you were Christ himself.
This is true. It's true.
Fuck it out. All right, next topic. So this, Jack, I know you operate in London. I rent in London, and I've just secured a new flat, boys. Got a 2-bed. It's fucking naughty.
Congrats.
What
part of town?
Are we going to have a
same place for
are we going to have a warm up slumber party with the ground up crew?
Slumber party, yeah. Bring your PJs.
Yeah, you're going to host a housewarming party?
Yeah, mate. Fucking right, can do. Yeah, get down there, and there's the Rutland Arms and that along the Fulham River is where I live. Like along Fulham, it's just beautiful, mate. It's the spot in London for me. Like I love it. Absolutely love it down there.
Get a date in, mate, and share it with the Ground Up network, and we'll get a date in the diary. Come to your local.
Go get pissed up. That'd be sick.
Sounds good.
Yeah. So, but obviously, where it is expensive. Like it's probably one of the most expensive it is the most expensive postcode in Fulham. It won't be in London, but to give you an idea, the 1-bed that I was currently renting was 2,650 a month, and it's about 40 square meter 1-bed, and now I've got a 2-bed, and it's 4.5 grand a month. Like it is ridiculous cost. But it depends what you want to pay for. I could pay $1,000 less a month and then get something more average that doesn't come with all the facilities on the river, things like that. So to me, that value is worth it. But there's the average salary in London, it's not that high. People think it's really high, but actually, I know a lot of people who are on like 28, 30 grand salaries, 35, some are on 40s.
I don't even know how that's possible. I just don't know how that's possible.
The median average in London is 20 to 30% higher than the rest of the UK. There you go.
It is, but the caveat here is, but I'm talking from a perspective of young people building into their career, and take the city folk out, lads who are working at, Goldman Sachs, JP Morgan, things like that. Obviously, they're on crazy salaries. When you just look at the average, particularly for those under 30s, they just cannot. You just absolutely can't afford to live on your own. You need to share, and it's completely reshaping the London market, and I can see it firsthand because most flats now are amenable to people sharing, and that's because it's just become the norm. You have to share if you want to get by as a young person. I just wonder what your guys' thoughts are on that with the London affordability and how you think that's going to affect things over time and maneuverability for young people as well, because it's not just young. It's also like, if you're not making above a 40 grand salary at a minimum, there's no way you can afford to rent in London, and you certainly can't afford to save enough to buy somewhere in London. So what does that mean to be a city folk in London going forwards? What's your thoughts, guys? Jack, I know you operate down there, so you must have some insight.
I mean, it's a difficult one, isn't it, really? Because we actually have had staff that have moved out of London to have a quieter life, not be in the hustle bustle every day. And then we give them a job offer and they go, well, I'll get more than that in London. And I go, sort of, go on then, go to London. Like it's you do get paid marginally more in London. I know what you're saying about, a lot of the people I went to university with came out of marketing degrees and were on 25 grand a year in central London for a few years until they climbed the ladder. But that's a choice, right? I think London is either, I always think like lean into what something is for, take it on face value. If you want to have probably a difficult cost of living, but be on the doorstep of one of the best cities in the world and enjoy that city life, and then climb that corporate ladder in London, do that. The people I do feel a bit sorry for are the people where their families, so they were born and their families were based around London. Their families got into London when it was probably more affordable. And now they're like, well, I have to either leave my area where I grew up, my friends and family, because I can't afford it. That I feel for. People going in, it's their own choice. So they've got to have their wits about them and run their own numbers anyway. And realistically, it's kind of like obvious. If you go into London and get paid marginally more, it might cost significantly more, but you're choosing a slightly different lifestyle, if that makes sense. I mean, this problem is around the whole world. If you go to places that I've been to before, San Diego, you could live an hour from San Diego city center, or you can live in San Diego city center. The price difference is 50%, and you don't get paid anymore, really, in that particular scenario, because it's not as it's not much of a boiling pot for transport, because London is a very unique space. It's almost impossible to commute and work in central London. You're always on train or tube, which then makes those areas that are commuter belts or on the train line super expensive, and then they come almost like sub communities. It's the kind of like the catchment of this is young renters in London need to earn £40,000 before rent. The principle of this is you need to earn a lot of money to live in London. That's been that way since the war,
since forever. You need 40 grand to rent you need 35 grand to rent a one bedroom studio HMO room to get through referencing in the areas I operate. That's not
the problem is the delta. It's the disposable income. Like affordability, disposable income, and rising rental rates because of other factors like landlords selling their properties because the government's fucking them. So there's less rentable properties on the market. So then therefore demand is increased and therefore rents go up. That's a bigger problem, in my opinion. And obviously the affordability of mortgages, the ratio of income against a mortgage is greater than it was. So therefore people are forced to rent. That's a bigger problem. The fact that London's just more expensive is what it is.
It is what it is, but the data is that it's become a lot more expensive as a proportionate amount of your income, just because of what's happened to asset values. Which post-war, we didn't have anywhere near the same kind of capital markets and asset what would you say, like asset advertisement that London has become because of it becoming more monetized. So foreign investors look at London as a place to store capital, not as a place of utility, a place to store capital. And the secondary effect of that is that those who actually need to use London as a utility are now paying a higher cost to service those that want to store their capital in London. And that is a slightly newer phenomenon, and it's going to continue to be that way until it just becomes far too unaffordable. And I think the idea that now young people can share, and that landlords are becoming more amenable to those younger people who can share, can retain those asset values and a given yield that holds it up. It's like it's the free market adjusting, isn't it? Because families on their own now can't afford to pay like the 2-bed flat rates, so instead two incomes can come in and pay the 2-bed flat rates and still maintain those kind of capital values. And it will ossify those markets to becoming, if you're building flats, it's no longer for families, it's for young people who need to share so they can get by in London. I don't think there's anything necessarily wrong with that. I think it's good that people share. I think it's more fun to share at a young age than it is to live on your own. I think it's a bit sad living on your own when you're trying to get by in your career and have a social life and things like that. But there isn't really any optionality now. If you want to live in West London, you got to share when you're starting out. But I don't know, it's just a strange place to go.
It's been like that for years, though, hasn't it? Flat sharing and stuff in London. It's had to be. It's just all relevant. At the end of the day, it comes back to what Davos wanted, which was everyone gets nothing, and we'll be happy. And it's just coming down to you no longer can have a flat to yourself. You now can have a room. Eventually, it'll be have a bed, then it'll be a VR headset, and you'll have nothing. You'll get food delivered to your house, and you'll have a 6x6. It's really sad, but who knows what the next 20 years is going to look like? That's what I think all the time.
Yeah, mate. Yeah, I think the other thing to this as well is it's not just the sharing part. It's just to save enough money to live in London is like to buy somewhere is like it's like a distant dream now for most people. Like there's no way. Like it's just so expensive unless you're willing to go to like the depths of South London or on the outskirts of London. But even then, you go west outskirts of London, where you guys are, it gets even more pricey. Like it can get pretty insane. So it's a dynamic landscape. Like I'll be interested to see what happens over the next 10 years if London really stabilizes or if there's new kind of hubs, and because where young people go is where new kind of communities and things like that form. And I know they tried that in East London, and East London's kind of gone to shit a lot, partly because of the social housing push. I can't stand going to East London, but there was a lot of young communities that started getting built out. Not sure how well that's really going, but that's generally what happens, isn't it? Wherever young people congregate, that's where the nightlife goes. That's where culture goes, and all that sort of stuff.
I would have said that. I think the way London is, though, is that it's so multicultural. It's very difficult to look at the sort of characteristics of a new young neighborhood or area, because it's just so vast. There are specific areas that are more suited to different cultures, but it's so international.
It is, but to give you an idea, like the people I know in Fulham, what happened is like there's these alphabet streets basically, and the alphabet streets are family streets where the local schools and everyone grows up together. Everyone grows up together in those communities, and all the families know each other's families, and it's very NIMBY, very, very, very like the extreme of NIMBY. If houses are going to be sold, they get sold within the community. They rarely hit the market. And what happens is you have these generational families that get passed down, and everyone knows each other. Because now the kids have just no chance of affording to be able to live there, what's happening is they're getting sold to more and more foreigners who are coming in. And then the foreigners are going to the local schools, and it's completely dissipating the generational culture that was built. And that's happening throughout pockets of London. It's why the Cockneys no longer exist. There's no Cockney community anymore because the affordability is gone. So there are these things that happen and that divide communities as monetizing assets becomes more extreme and happens quicker and quicker cycles where generational living can't keep up. So So I think it's something to consider.
Yeah, but that's happening in every community around the country. I mean, it's just insane. I saw a postcard of our local town from like 1990s or 1989, and it just looked like such a pleasant place to live. You know, the streets were clean. It had like a shot of the local town centre, shop of like the local roads and stuff on it, and it was. I looked at it and thought, fuck, that's never coming back. That whole culture of walking down to the local area, seeing local people shopping, it's just been completely. I mean, it's not just to do with immigration; it's to do with the digital world and internet. But everyone's become a lot more
Well,
digital.
to be fair, every year there's like anywhere between 500,000 and 1 million new, people coming into the UK, and then there's also 500,000 people leaving the UK. So if you just do that over 20 years, very quickly you'll have a very different environment, because the world we live in today everything's a lot. There's a lot more freedom, a lot more movability. You could as we all know, you can move to Dubai next week if you want to. You can just pack up and kind of leave. Everything's digital, everything's online. It's very easy to do. Others have done it, and you can even pay people as a service just to fast track it all for you. So if you've got the means, you can flee quite easily. But with just those numbers, everything will change with just that numbers. It just won't happen.
What you're saying mechanically is absolutely true, D. But I think the context you need to add there is most of the people coming in are not necessarily, well, they're not on balance producing a net good or a net positive to the economy compared to those leaving, which says something bad about our country. We don't want people to leave because it's easy to move around the world. Like, we want people to stay because our country is competitive and advantageous for people to live here. Otherwise, we end up swapping out the good in society and bringing in the third world. And that's just not going to be good for those of us who want to have a prosperous country, have our kids benefit from the same culture that we benefited from. So there's caveats to those things. But mechanically, what you're saying is obviously very true.
Just on that comparison as well, like getting back from Dubai, I never for 15 years fancied Dubai at all. Was never interested. Thought it was going to be fake. Thought it was going to be dangerous. I thought it was going to be going in towards more Iran, Iraq, and that sort of Middle East, that sort of area, which is always have confrontation. So always avoided it. Wasn't interested. Went for Formula One, and then we went for 3 or 4 days. Stayed at the Atlantis, and I couldn't believe how clean everything was. And then I had to sort of almost beg Charlotte to go, look, try it. Just come and try it for like 5 or 6 days. We went for 8 nights this time last year. And when you go to the malls, you literally can eat your dinner off the floor. When you go to some of the restaurants, they've got 2 toilet attendants. The second you finish, they are redoing your hand towels, and it's just so immaculate. And literally, the transport is beautiful. You get from Dubai, and where it's backed by a good government, low taxes, it's attracting so many people there. I mean, the weather, I couldn't live there because it's just way too hot for 7-8 months of the year. But you can then come from Dubai airport and you go back to Heathrow. Now, we land at T5, and you walk through, and there's yellow stained walls in the toilets. It's got a horrible smell. It's more international than Dubai.
If 0 is practical completion and 100% is Beirut, what was the percentage of the Heathrow toilets?
Heathrow was like a 3 out of 10, and Dubai was like a 9.5 out of 10. Like, there's always room for improvement, but in terms of the cleanliness, you felt clean. It's going the wrong way. We're getting sucked. All the money's being sucked out of the economy to be used for the wrong things, and we're not working on the right things.
Do you not think that Dubai is just going to get so expensive though? So where you're talking about having 2 cleaners for a toilet, their economy is obviously booming, and it's really good for a booming economy to coexist with, you know, people coming in, because if that hotel is selling meals and selling rooms really easily, and the occupancy isn't a concern, they hire in people and go, actually, let's make this cleaner, let's make this better, and they invest in that service. But one of the reasons that they can do that is because the labor is cheap. The people that are not the millionaires, the labor's cheap. Pretty much everything that we do, you know, if we have a construction contract, 50% of our contract is probably materials and 50% is labor. So it's localized on that labor cost, but then also the materials are probably 95% labor costs. Those nails that were created were someone's overhead of hourly rate. So at the moment, they're in a position where everyone's coming in, and I feel like it's kind of like a second form of the USA, but where the USA has like peaked and then got a lot worse. You know, when I'm saying USA, probably more like California, Hollywood, those sorts of areas. And peaks and now just got terrible and dirty and old hat. Whereas I don't think that it will keep soaring, because I think costs will keep going up. They'll start to have, certain. I mean, they've got. If you look at London, the reason that you might leave London is weather. They've got that done. Security, they've got that dialed down. That's obviously one really top one. Cost of living, if you're not being taxed as much, it makes life a little bit easier to live there. And then the typical tie is people's family and culture. They want to hang around for that. But if their uncle or brother has moved over, the likelihood of them moving is greater. But I do think there's got to be sort of like, almost like a break, a peak point where it can't continue. Because if you go, I feel like if you just go to anyone in the UK, someone's left the country, the first guess will be Dubai.
Yeah, there's no reason for it. The only reason is that you have to leave your family behind, which is the heart. We actually went for dinner. We met this lovely, shout out to Kelly and Tyler, who will be watching this. But Tyler, we met out there with their 2 young kids. Their daughter was 1 year exactly to the day. Her name was Amelie, and she's born the same day as my Amelie. So that's how we started talking. And he's a site agent. He's a site manager. I know he's moved out there a year ago. He worked for Lang O'Rourke. He's doing the new Wynn Hotel, which is about an hour and 10 minutes away from where we were on the Palm. About maybe an hour and a half from where we were, an hour from the airport. And he was telling me that it's unbelievable what they're doing down there. They basically built the land. It's the only building that's on the island, and they're building this whole new community down there. And the people who work on the building, who are all there's 19,000 operatives. There's 0 health and safety. He said it's insane, but there's 0 deaths because they're bringing people in and they almost like bring them in and go, yeah, you can be an electrician, you can be a plumber, you can be a grounds worker. And it's insane compared to where he's been working previously. He wants to do 2 full contracts. But the thing is with him is he was saying that the people who work there will never get the chance to see what they're building. They're there all that time building everything, and yet they'll never be allowed into the hotels to see the finished concept.
This is the issue, and I'm a strong believer that the Middle East experiment is destined for failure. It will never work unless they completely flip who they're building for. Because at the moment they're building to attract foreign investment.
They're building global. They're sucking in global M2. That's what they're doing. They're not going to fail because they can expand. They built Dubai, and now they're building.
No, but it's a zero-sum game. It's a zero-sum game they're playing compared to what the Western world's done. What has the UK and the US done to build society that's completely different to what Dubai and the Middle East are trying to reformulate now? We actually innovated. We've got institutions. We've got educational systems. Young people grow up, innovate, create goods and services. There's a consumerist society from the lower to the middle class level that can support a growing pie. But they are playing a zero-sum game where they're trying to just pull in, external productivity into their markets to basically monetize and transition their economic output, which is currently, fuel and oil and mineral wealth. And it just won't work because everyone I know who goes to Dubai and lives there churns after 3 years, like max, because you just can't sustain it for the heat, the weather, the culture, missing the jokes and laughs at the pub and British people or US people or European people, wherever they're from. And I just don't think they'll ever be able to recreate that unless they empower the lower and middle class of their own society to become generative, net producing and innovative people like we had to do. And that takes centuries. It takes such a long time that I just think it's destined for failure, but it might take 50 years or 100 years to do it.
Yeah, but you can, with the nomad lifestyle, which is ever growing popular, you can live there for 6 months of the year outside of the hottest weather. And then you can spend the other 6 months of the year, 3 months in the UK at the best times to suit friends and family. You have to rent your main residence out, and then you can go and spend 2 months on a cruise in the Bahamas. If you can afford that lifestyle, that's what people are doing because they're getting away from the tax that's been wherever else is taxing everyone so much. You can go and create this new lifestyle.
But that is a moving, right now, yes, taxes are a strong incentive for people to go there. But in 10 years' time, the tax rate in the UK might be really competitive again. And what happens to expats then? It might not. But over history, they changed, didn't they?
This is the risk that you run with any country. I mean, the prime example is talk about the in-laws again. They obviously went through a liberal administration with Biden, which was probably as far away as you could get from Donald Trump, which is obviously a very conservative governor and very outspoken, quite irrational and an abrupt man. And it's quite comical because I've gone through in our Monica relationship, I've gone through them saying our country's in tatters, don't even look at our politics at the moment, to now being like, we're the best country in the world. And I'm like, and they say, what's going on with your country? It seems like, I won't say what they actually say, but it seems like it's not in a good place. And I'm like, yeah, it's not. And then it's almost like that you forget that there's cycles, right? There's cycles of good, bad, and ugly, and I feel like you need that good balance. That our Conservative government wasn't really being a conservative government for us. There wasn't enough like clinical action on certain areas in the government, and they needed a wake up call. That wake up call ideally shouldn't have been Labour coming in, but it is. And I kind of feel like, exactly like you say, you never really know exactly where a country's going unless you've got different leadership styles than terms like we do or the US do.
Do you not find some, like, ultimately in a democracy that's functional, and I still think we have somewhat of a functional democracy, when you talk to the people, everyone I know, and I'm sure you guys are the same, from site managers to staff in the office to people I meet to friends, everyone is in the same boat now. Everyone wants to see massive change, and everyone understands that government is an issue. And I think that's all it takes. So I'm really optimistic about the future of the UK. I am optimistic because I think there's such an impetus from the people now to want to see change that the same thing will happen that happened in the US. But we've got slightly more entrenched stakeholders that work around Parliament that need to be dethroned, and that's going to be quite difficult over the coming years. But I think it's going to flip, and when it flips back, places like Dubai and stuff, they look awful in comparison. They look like they look like a Truman Show shopping mall out in the sands that no one wants to go to because it's inconvenient, when they could be in the UK around, good health, good culture, good people. I'm not saying people are bad in Dubai. I'm just saying, from the grassroots up in the UK is, from our, football culture to music and all that kind of stuff. People want to be around that. They want to indulge in that. They want their kids to be a part of that. So I'm optimistic. I think we'll flip back, and I think America's a good, kind of litmus test for what might happen here. But next topic, PBSA. I had a chat with. I'm not going to name drop, but someone who does PBSA, and I said to them, this is about 2 years ago now. I was like, I cannot see PBSA working. My reason for it was just what's happening with AI and the educational system, and people not looking at education as having the same kind of utility that it once had, unless there's a big reform of the educational sector. And so I think that's going to play out anyway. And now there's another guy who I had in the office last week, and he works on like management systems for PBSA providers, and he was saying how the void rates are getting higher and higher year on year, and it's becoming more difficult to fill the units, which I think is quite interesting. And there's some stats here. So Sheffield has experienced a 17.3% decline in demand, resulting in a decrease in student-to-bed ratio and a 5.5% decrease in rents, signalling affordability constraints. Postgraduate numbers have fallen by over 17% in the past 2 years, leading to increased competition among accommodation providers and higher rental costs for students. Structural undersupply persists in the market, with a net increase of 10,000 new beds this year, far below pre-pandemic levels, potentially leading to oversupply in markets like Leeds. What do you think? Because we've not spoke really much about PBSA.
We haven't touched on PBSA. I mean,
no.
Can I give you my penny's worth?
Oh,
Yeah, go on.
sorry, he's back.
Sorry, mate. I am sorry. I had to go for a wee.
I went into this PBSA block, and the smell.
Right, geezer.
Like 30%.
Right, listen. So I reckon the PBSA will succeed because the renters reform has been restricted so much on the whitehead investor. Yeah, student accommodation is not going to work for most landlords like it is set up today, because I think the students are going to play a game where the PBSA schemes and the bigger companies are exempt from a lot of these rules. When you've got 5 or 6 people sharing a HMO and one wants to leave, they all have to leave, or you have to renegotiate. And if you can renegotiate 1 or 2 of them leaving, then students will eventually start playing the game where 5 or 6 will share, 2 will move out after 2 months because they've decided uni's not for them. And then you've got to make a decision. You take your property off the market and you put it back to rooms that you rent to the private or public, and you try and recirculate where you can't boot anyone out anymore because of renters reform. So eventually all these will become private HMOs and not students, because that cycle, to try and keep that cycle rotating for every academic cycle, is going to be almost impossible. So the only thing that will fail is obviously if people stop realizing that they don't need to go to uni anymore, because ChatGPT will do everything that they need in the future, and there's no need to go and get this type of education. That's the big issue.
There's already a big structural disruption that's happened, and that's that a lot of courses can now be done virtually, and or you only need to be in lectures once or twice every now and then, whether it's a week, bi-weekly, or monthly. So why would they take on the overhead of the accommodation?
Well, the student HMO market will decrease. The PBSA schemes will stay. The ones that go to private, where normally they go and do 1 year, don't they? They go and find their friends, and then they want to rent in 2 years, 2 and 3, and then go and do work placements and stuff. So we try and specialise to people who are in second year. They've got their friend network. They've got a house they want to rent in, have the barbecues, the parties, and all the rest of it, and have their own space. But having that second year, I mean, we are trying to attract second year tenants, so people who have sort of made a commitment to want to stay. And we're trying to market. You can only market like up to 6 months ahead of them moving in now, where we tried to market in the sort of November, December for the next September. We have to move that to like sort of March time. Can't remember the reasons why, but it means that we're trying to attract the organized students who are focused and want to do it. So that will delay the problem. But ultimately, the ones that are not organized and are a bit erratic, and they're in year one and they're just trying to rent rooms out, those HMOs will fall apart. And I think that demand will then be sucked into the PBSE scheme. So it's probably a problem for 5-6 years down the road, but it depends on how quick AI kicks in. If AI kicks in and we realize that, it can all be done remotely and digitally, we can do those big schemes with no windows that have been designed for, 10, 15, 20 people to share a kitchen. They're big lumps of building. There's a lot of capital in them.
Go on, Jack.
Just to add my 2 cents, I think that we're talking about a couple of issues here. Ryan was talking about the desire for people to go to university, and that is your demand push. And then also one of the biggest vulnerabilities of student accommodation is you can't sell one of the rooms. You have to sell the whole building on an investment yield. That investment yield is worked out of gross revenue, netted down with your operational costs, and then someone buying that income. If the markets are volatile, like interest rates or base rates go up, and the markets get weaker from a yield purchasing capacity, your building value, which I've seen in our social housing portfolio, can be worth 15 million quid one day and then 8 million quid 3 years later. So volatility on the investment markets is huge. So from an investment perspective, I think it's a terrible market to be in unless you have what I call trophy locations. So if you have if you're operating in Edinburgh, for an example, because I know PBSA landlord in Edinburgh, his site backed onto campus where the Edinburgh campus was. That's never going to move. It's in Edinburgh city centre. That site is where it is. It's in a great location, really desirable. You will probably over time outperform other PBSA sites because your occupations will be higher. It will feel easier. You could probably run it at a slightly better cost basis because of that exact reason. You're putting less into marketing and blah, blah, blah. And I think that sort of location is really, really, really important. And I do feel that this market could quite quickly be oversaturated in the sense that there's not enough people coming into university. I mean, would you send your kids to university, Stu?
Absolutely not. Well, I hope not. I mean, we're still looking at schools now, and I just don't really like the schooling system as it is either. So we're having a bit of a debate about what to do. But I don't think there's any need for university at all. I think it's a waste of. I haven't got. I did think about it, but I haven't got the patience for it. As much as I love them, I need to give them. They need to be someone else's problem for 8 hours a day, and not my problem.
You can imagine it, couldn't you?
The right school is important.
Hudson going around one of his mates' house. And I'm like, hello, Hudson. How are you doing? He's like, all right, lads, ladies. So we've got lifted top off. Get some posi joist up, scaffold way round. Yeah, I'll have a cup of tea.
He'll just walk around with a hammer in his hand, mate. That's all he'll be like. Yeah, I want to smash everything up. Let's go. Amazing. But yeah, no, it's going to have to be a decent school. But we're moving to an area that I'm hoping's got some. We've been to like 2 schools already, and it is such an important decision to know who they're growing up with and what they're teaching. Ultimately, what the curriculum is teaching them. But they're going to get my 2 pennies worth along the way as well of what's important and what's not, in my opinion. But we'll see.
We'll see. All right. Well, we're at the hour mark exactly on the dot. So, I mean, there are some more bits on this that we can touch on in next episode. But hopefully that's been a good one for our listeners, diving into some more property specific stuff. And we'll bring more structure back to these pods. I think we've just had a bit of a wild few weeks, all of us. Just that's what happens in summer, though, isn't it? You just end up getting torn left, right, and centre. But yeah, don't forget we've got the live events coming up. Go-karting, which is we're going to sell that out basically. That'll be fun. A good 30, 40 of us there. So come to the go-karting in central London. The live event is now live. You can get all the tickets from the link in the description, and that's January 9th, and that's going to be a great sesh. That'll be really fun. So make sure you come along to that. The super early bird tickets are out now, which obviously at a discounted rate, and if you bring in groups as well, if you come for 3 or more people, then you get a nice discount on that too. And just remember, we're doing this because we want to build a network in the community, because that's what benefited us and helped elevate our careers. And we're trying to offer the same to others, and others help us. So it's like it's a great feedback loop where your selfish interests benefit other people's selfish interests. So make sure you get involved. But yeah, big love. Subscribing really helps us. So please make sure you subscribe.
Subsqualor.
And we'll see you next week. Adios.
Ground up sound. Ooh, yeah.